And now we move on to the third theme of the day, which is innovation industry. This theme is being moderated by Charmaine Stint, who is the Senior Development Manager for Partnerships at Birmingham City University. She works cross-faculty, cross-sector, and supports the university with industry engagement activity with a focus on the creative industries and business-to-business processes. So that's enough from me. I'm sure you want to hear more from Charmaine and from Rehan, who is our speaker in the next session. So Charmaine, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. So welcome everybody to the afternoon session. As Tom mentioned, we're talking about industry and a STEAM approach within that. So before I welcome all of our guests, I'd like to introduce you into our main speaker for the session, Associate Professor Rehan Bhana. He's from our School of Computing and Digital Technology. He's a founder of our Innovation Fest. He's sparked a productive ecosystems teaching process and learning across the faculty. And he's orchestrating innovative journeys and co-designing STEAM interventions with startups and established businesses. Today, Rehan is exploring what STEAM means in a business context and how that can support innovation and knowledge transfer. And he'll be talking to Nazim Mohammed, who is IT Manager at Conway Packaging Service. Nazim is also a BCU graduate. He came out of CB with his BCU Information Management qualification. And he has gone on to support Conway Packaging through implementing innovation to support some of their challenges in delivering an excellent service within that industry. Working alongside them, we have senior lecturer Waldo Cervantes, who specialises in distributed systems. He's got over 20 years of experience in technology and software application, and is currently looking at smart cities and smart mobility. Philip Atkins is our Knowledge Transfer Partnership Associate. He's also a BCU graduate in IT Systems Analysis. And Philip has been working with the Conway team, looking at their in-house processes and how innovation can lead to making changes within that sector. So I'd like to hand over to Rehan now, and we'll take questions at the end of the session. Hope Rehan's there with us.
Yeah, you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, you're a little bit quiet, Rehan.
Can you hear me now?
That's good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, just gonna raise it a little bit more. Okay, thank you, Charmaine. Thank you for the introductions. Absolutely, I try and make it as fun as possible, as creative as possible as I can be, especially after lunch. I'm sure you all have your black coffees right next to you to keep you awake. But that's correct. I live in the School of Computing, Digital and Technology, and we work on a number of projects in collaboration with industry, with business partners. So but also in academia specifically. So I will work through those as we speak, as we go forward. I mean, it's always about collaboration. It's always about bringing people together. And there's always a team behind successful things that happen at BCU, particularly. I know that. But here, especially when we talk about industry, we're doing things very differently. Our approach is different, and how we're approaching that is going to be. We would like to share that with you, and the team here is with me today to share that. So I credit them for being here today with me. So as Charmaine puts it, Nazim, Waldo, and Philip. But yeah, computing engineering and the built environment is very much STEM orientated. I do believe that, but its approach is very research informed, and it's practice. It's really putting things into real life, into an approach where realization kicks in, but then the opportunity for us to visualize where we can take that forward through research. And in the School of Digital and Computing, we have a number of research groups that play a huge role in how we shape up STEAM going forward. But you know, as mentioned earlier by Clayton, we're talking about the School of Computing being part of STEAMhouse 2.0, integrated, part of everyday life, and research will play a huge role and influence from the school in how we move forward, especially in the digital world we live in today. So lots of expertise, lots of research groups that can interlock with disciplines across the university, but across the city. We talk about STEM, we talk about STEAM. At the heart of it, it is an approach. It is a way of education. Fundamentally, that's where STEM and STEAM is all about. So for me, it's always been, when I work with industry and I speak today, is really based on the projects that we are working on. We in the faculty, we've got now about 6-7 live KTP projects, knowledge transfer partnership projects. We've got research projects going on, but it's the art, for me, it's the art of application, and when you pick it, for industry, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what STEAM means at the end of the day. What it really means is it's a place where we can do research, innovation, and we can acquire knowledge. And that's been the fundamental piece of how do we put all those things together and really make it work. So whilst on the subject, it's a huge opportunity for us to gain access for all. And collaborative, we speak when we talk about STEAM all the time, where individuals are coming together for one goal and achieving one goal. But cooperation is really when you have multiple goals, you have multiple business objectives that need to be met. Business partnerships come into a huge play there. So cooperation, we have realized, play a fundamental role if we are going to make STEAM really successful. And of course, tapping into the inclusivity, being able to reach out into pockets we have never touched before. We have never explored innovation before. These are huge opportunities for us to be inclusive, to make STEAM applicable for everyone. So from an innovation and industry perspective, and I touched this from the KTPs I'm working on, but also some of the research projects that are involved in the faculty, we realize, there's the innovation that we talk about every day. STEAM is an approach to innovation, but there's fundamental aspects of quality and aesthetic. Aesthetic primarily here being, the touch, the feel, the looks, where we think about, it plays a huge role, and it's demand led by people. But having said that, aesthetic also involves taking into account the ergonomics, everything around that proposes quality. So that centerpiece design really brings it together for us in an industry perspective. But fundamentally, from a people perspective, if we are not transforming the business, we are not transforming the workforce, we're not transforming the society, I think that begins to fail on us as a whole approach. So I think bringing the design, the core design, into the centerpiece, taking those things into account really plays important. We're going to use the colleagues from Conway Packaging and Waldo from the university to actually present a case study around where it's more on the left side. Actually, aesthetics is secondary, but the touch and feel is secondary, but absolutely important. But fundamental, if quality fails, they can't deliver their product. And it's really fascinating the learnings we've had from that project. That how we are more on the quality side from that perspective. So I'm just going to pass on to Nazim to introduce Conway Packaging as a project, as a company we work with in the faculty, not just from a research or a innovation perspective, but also from an education perspective. Nazim, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Thank you, Rehan. Thanks for your introduction. Thank you, Charmaine, as well, Eddie, for introducing me. From what I can see, my webcam does look very dark with poor lighting. I'm getting on it today from the office and from the camera itself. But I hope you can hear me okay. So yeah, my name is Nazim Mohammed. I'm from Conway Packaging Services. I am a former graduate from Birmingham City University in the computer engineering built environment. Rehan was actually one of my tutors when I was studying about 7 years ago. So it's a great relationship that we managed to secure working with BCU to help bring change to Conway Packaging Services. at present. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, great.
Nazim, can I just ask if you can just adjust your volume? You're a little bit quiet for everybody.
Yep, okay, no problem. That's fine. Okay, so yeah, I'm from a company called Conway Packing Services. We've been working with the university for around 3 to 4 years now. Initially starting on a KEEN, which is a knowledge exchange enterprise network, which then transformed into a knowledge transfer partnership that we're currently working on with Philip Atkins and with Waldo Cervantes, as well as Rehan Bhana. A bit about Conway Packing Services. We're a crafts business, primarily around export case making. Our unique product is that we use woodwork. It's quite an art. We are run by people. It's quite creative, and everything is handcrafted here. So it's not just a traditional manufacturing company. It does take decades of skill and knowledge in order for us to create bespoke products for our customers. Some of our customers are, just to name a few, we pack with the likes of JCB, Jaguar Land Rover, and the Ministry of Defence, making, as Rehan just mentioned, quality a huge thing for us. We do pack to accreditations defined by the Ministry of Defence, and also ISO 9001 and 14001 accreditations as well. So Conway Packing Services, it works across 2 sites, both here in the West Midlands. First one being in Tipton, measuring at 2.7 acres, and then our greater site in Albury, measuring at 9.37 acres. So massive sites, a lot of work to be done, and a lot of room for improvement. But we are working with the university at the moment on our KTP, and we are bringing digital change to the company and how we can improve the already great service that we provide. Move on, next slide. Okay, so as I was saying, we're not just a traditional manufacturing company. A lot of our work is bespoke. This is just a couple of designs that we do at Conway Packing. As you can see, we get sent in machines from the Ministry of Defence, and it is our job to create a bespoke case so that the item that is being transferred is secure. As you can see, the components that go into each case, they take a lot of craftsmanship. They are very creative, and again, it's not just a traditional manufacturing. It does take a lot of dedication, skill, and knowledge to create a bespoke product for our customers. That was briefly what we do. As a service, we offer 3D CAD design, as you saw on the previous slide. The designs that we do for the customers, we are able to create them in-house using 3D software. We can also arrange shipping, and we also do the packing and steel fabrication all in-house here in our 2 sites in the West Midlands. I did mention a bit about the knowledge transfer partnership with BCU, but I'll pass you over to our KTP affiliate though to go through a bit more about the KTP, so you get a better understanding of what we're doing with BCU at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Naz. Thank you, Rehan. So, my name's Phil. I'm the KTP Associate with Conway Packing Services. Again, as Charmaine said, I'm a BCU graduate. So a lot of people asking why knowledge transfer partnerships and Conway's. Why was it the road we took? So the partnership, as it says on the slide, allows for frank dialogue between academics and industry experts to determine the best course of action. We always question, we've always done this. And the idea is, so companies like Conway's have got into sort of an environment where they've always done the same thing and they've never sort of changed. Whereas the academics allow us to bring in sort of new ideas, new concepts, and sort of temper to define what's good for the organisation. And it also means that me myself as an associate get access to the university's resources as well as the companies. So I think, Waldo, you were going to take over? Waldo around?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm Waldo Cervantes, senior lecturer at CV, and I'm the academic supervisor for this KTP project. One thing that we have been doing right from the start is having a design thinking mindset approach to the project. Something that might not have been very apparent from what Nassim and Phil mentioned before is that well, Nassim did mention that it's bespoke cases, that's the company's main product. And that means that the process itself, it's not necessarily very suited for automation. It requires quite a lot of craft, a lot of expertise and knowledge about the materials and the processes themselves. And as I said, it's not necessarily something that we can come in and then just put a machine to work on it. And on the other hand, it's something that right from the start we didn't want to do. We wanted to make sure that people, the factory, people in the factory floor were actually involved, and this mindset of getting people involved as part of the process has been something that we've been quite keen on looking at. Obviously, we have to make sure that the business requirements are met. On your right-hand side, you'll see a diagram of how the process looks like, and there's a lot of steps, a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration. But mainly and primarily, we are thinking of how can we empower the people working in the factory floor through the use of IoT technologies, through the use of data, and so on. And Phil, so Phil will explain a little bit of one of the processes that we are working on, because there's quite a few. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Oliver. So those of you who are IT, at least will understand the diagram on the right-hand side of that. Those who aren't, don't worry, I'll explain in a moment. So when we start the project, we started to look at sort of what data was available in the business, what we could do, and how we could sort of digitize it. So what we thought is we'd look at the process of just how do we know that someone's working on a job? And at the moment, that's a piece of paper. Each member of staff has a piece of paper. They fill in their hours, the customer's name, the job they were working on. That's handed into the office in the week. Everything's totted up and calculated, and that's how we get our information. The problem with that is that's kind of like a reactive process. So playing around with ideas, what we could do. And we thought, okay, so I'll tell you what, we'll put a simple device on the factory floor that'll capture when someone starts a job and when someone ends a job. Then what does that give us? So if you go to our right-hand side document, you can see our costing manager can now understand who's working on what jobs and the hours they took them. Our HR manager can see someone's productivity. Our works manager can spot jobs that are active. Our accounts manager can now see how their orders are going. Our directors can identify capacity. So from one simple transaction, we've got all these different pieces of information that can come across and give us a bigger picture of how the organisation is going. So how does that benefit us? Well, helps a cross person to make sure they're getting paid right. It also helps them get recognition for the work they did do. Our customer can get better prices because they can understand the amount of labour it takes to make that product. And our standards increase because we instantly have someone associated with a job. So if there is an issue with standards or quality, we can go back to whoever worked on that. And like it says on the slide, SIP seeks to innovate through challenging the status quo in Conway. So I hand back to Rehan now.
Good. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Waldo, Nazim. So I think just to present that case study provides the element of validation, where we're going through the process of, in our methodology, we're including the design thinking processes, for example. We're very focused in people-orientated workspaces, but ultimately we're also looking at how we are validating it from a faculty, from a research group. We're looking at these large projects as a validation process. We're now moving on to how does this actually inform what happens next, what is going on next. So we've been working on a project that's funded by the European Union in the Knowledge Alliance strategic partnerships, where we're bringing the research communities together. And it's been a real interesting eye-opener where we have lots of partners in there, but we've actually been sharing practice of engagement from different business communities with university research-led groups. So it's been fascinating to see that coming together. And they're all connected locally connected. So it's a very much localization approach to reaching out in a more international perspective. But the model in there is we're really looking at the 3 I's, where you're talking about an international approach. Yes, we do multidisciplinary, but we've seen success so much in interdisciplinary, and there's a huge piece around intersectoral, where we're talking about complex policies that we need to work on so that we can actually tackle it. So take, for example, COVID-19. So when you go into businesses today, some of the large projects I work in, it's not about innovation, it's about survival to a certain extent. So we're using the policies and the matters that are occurring around that, and we know intersectoral is very popular in the health domain, where we use that. So the PhD Hub offers a call for cooperation. It develops this unique relationship between university and businesses. It gives you a platform, a marketplace for future young researchers coming in, the opportunities that can be shared on the platform. And ultimately, we're looking at funding calls. We're looking at diversifying funding calls through that. So there's a number of partners we've worked with across Europe and observers across Russia and Asia. But the ambition is to really think about converging the needs of business. We're answering the question, and the ambition is to answer. You see the converging needs of business and universities and researchers coming together. So long we've been working to bring things together. We now see that coming together. We see businesses valuing the work universities do, and how does that come together? And ultimately, for me, it's always been from an academic perspective. I'll be biased on that perspective. How do the PhD students? How do we empower them? How do they ensure that they are also seeing the fruits and the successes of the work academics do, of the work businesses do? So international, yes, connected, and ultimately empowered into our PhD communities as well. Which leads to a nice. This is our last slide where we talk about a cooperation call, and that's for me the gray boxes have been really the do's, what actually happens, what actually needs to be done, and one of the cooperation calls that we are working on with Conway Packaging is how do we now, all the learning, all the validation that we are doing, innovating, solving problems, but ultimately how does that feed back into the community, into the research communities? What have we learned from those lessons? So I'm going to ask Waldo to pick up on that and share some of the thoughts, which will lead nicely into the Q&As. Waldo?
Yeah, sorry, again, mute. So yeah, thank you very much, Rehan. So yeah, as Rehan said, it's all about application of knowledge and transferring the knowledge. I mean, obviously, the whole KTP, it's all about transferring knowledge to a particular company, in this case, Conway. But in reality, we are also looking into some very interesting, well, to us at least, very interesting pieces of research or research challenges. And they all relate in terms of how do we digitize process. There's this concept in IoT about digital twins, and it's all about how do we digitize a machine and how do we interact and look for data that machine can provide to the production cycle, really. But then what happens if you start to digitize those, not only the machines, but the processes, and more importantly, the activities that people have to do within that process or that product life cycle. So it's all about modeling and analyzing transactions that happen across this supply chain in a way. What happens when we look at this, as I said before, in particular in this company, it's not very prone to automation or not suitable, or actually we it's not even relevant to do so. So what happens when we look at this automating or automation technologies from a craft point of view, from a business that relies on craft, and obviously on how do human and computers collaborate, because it's all about collaboration. We can automate or we can digitize things and the processes and machines and so on, but if we don't involve the humans, it just becomes a moot point. So it's all about making sure that people are, of course, keep their jobs. That's super important to us. It's not about removing the human from the equation, but rather how do we make them work together? And it's all about collaboration. It's about enabling, empowering the people working in the factory floor. So those are sort of the things that we are interested in looking at. And yeah, I guess over to Q&A. Rehan, is there any other thing that you want to mention?
Yeah, no problem, Charmaine.
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions coming in for all of you. I'll pose the questions, and then whoever sees fit out of the four of you to answer, then you can take the lead on it. So one of the first questions that came through was, how do you go about embedding a design thinking approach into the company culture to make a sustainable culture change long term?
Walter, you want to pick that up? Design thinking
Thank
culture?
you. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that, unfortunately, given the COVID-19 situation, we haven't been able to fully complete, because as I said, we are working on this KTP, knowledge transfer project, and it's literally all about transferring the knowledge. And the way we do this, we've done this actually in a way, but not fully yet, which is creating workshops. It's workshops with every single stakeholder within the company. Obviously, the first one we had was with the higher up and the management team. We had another with mid-management, just to try to understand the requirements, what they need, what sort of technology we can bring into the equation, what sort of problems they're facing, and the challenges that they found. And the next one, which hopefully we'll do as soon as we can get people together in a room again, and the reason I'm saying this is because we are now looking into the people working at the factory floor. So it's not necessarily something that we will be able to do over Teams, over Skype, because the nature of their jobs, the nature of the things that they're actually used to. But we are now very, very keen into getting them involved, because if we don't make them appropriate the technology that we are working on, and Phil mentioned something about these headless nodes in which people can scan in or clock in their jobs, which, if we look at it from a point of view of a worker, might seem that we are actually trying to measure everything that they're doing and just literally keep track of every single thing they're doing. And in a way, yes, we want to know that, but we also want to make it clear to them that it's something for their own benefit, because there's another part of the project which involves creating this set of rewards and a reward scheme, which has been very, very, from the people that know about it in the company, they are breaking to adopt it, but we need to bring them over. And that part, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do so. It was actually one of the things that before the COVID situation, the lockdown happened, we were looking to do something at STEAMhouse, bring them over for a full day and literally just workshop the thing. Yeah.
Thanks.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, great response. So slightly leading on from that, another follow-up question is, how do you go about engaging a business that maybe isn't so innovative or doesn't quite know how to take that step into the innovation sphere, and how would you go about addressing that kind of situation?
So how do we go about engaging with the business? So, I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, we work with startups, both from a research perspective, but also from a university perspective, from BCU Advantage, but including STEAMhouse, where we worked with the members of the STEAMhouse, where they've come in and we've actually problem solved and supported them in specific, specific problem solving where they haven't had either the resource or particularly the knowledge to actually overcome, for them to leap onto the next stage of their journey, to be honest. So either resource or knowledge is where we can really provide that level of support. And of course, if it leads into core bidding in terms of into funding streams like knowledge transfer partnership or even larger Innovate UK projects, those can be explored. In the PhD Hub, you can connect, you can register directly on the PhD Hub platform, phthub.eu, and that would connect you to the Birmingham Hub, which links you back into the university.
Great, thanks, Rehan. Another question about how you engage with businesses, and somebody's asking about how have you found and how have you addressed resistance to your proposals? So if you're working with a business, I know we've spoken about taking a business on a journey. Mm-hmm. So how do you address the resistance that you might get from a business?
I'm going to let Phil tackle that one. Phil deals with resistance day in, day out. And it's a session we've had before the KTP kicked off. And it's one of the main things I put on my development plans with all my associates, or even my students for that matter. Resistance will be there, but it's an approach to it. So I'll let Phil share some words on that.
Thank you, Rehan. Nicely sidestepped there. So my personal approach to resistance, and to be honest, when I first started with Commerce, there was a lot of resistance because the company was very paper-based, and I walked through the door. I found that sort of two steps. One could be quite frustrating as a developer is baby steps. What I remember is, as a graduate and as an IT professional, I'm well aware of where things could be, and I can see where they are. And whereas I kind of want to jump the gun and get them straight to the finish line, it's understanding the journey the company needs to go through. So showing them little things, producing lots of prototypes, giving them different options to play with, and gradually, as they start to see added value, sort of, the best case scenario, best thing I can sort of give to you is one of the colleagues who works in the office next door, very anti-change. She'd always done it ever since she'd started the same way. And I started to show her sort of like the 5, the 10, the 15 minutes we could save her. Throughout a month, that was a couple of hours. And then once she agreed that process, showed her a bit more, we pushed a little bit further and a little bit further. And as part of the project, she's actually one of the leading members of staff now. She comes to me with ideas rather than me go to her. And a lot of times she now asks, can this be done? Can that be done? Is that possible? And then once I've got one member of staff on site, it's almost like it spreads. So I managed to get that member of staff on side. And she managed to get 2 other members of staff on the side. And the same process we take through the baby steps. Then it gets to a point where they start to give me the ideas. They start to tell me how they want to innovate. Once you've got 3 members on staff, then it passes again to sort of another 6 members of staff, and it's sort of like a wave of change. But I say it all starts with that baby step. You've got to understand that you can see the goal, you can see the end line, but they've never been on that journey, and you've got to be willing to take them through it. Okay, it can be slightly frustrating, but you do get there as long as you're persistent. I hope that's answered the question.
Yeah. The dominoes effect to innovation, where ideas start just evolving and evolving.
Can I just ask, just following on from that, Philip, are there specific processes that you would adapt or use for those specific individuals? So would you take them through a design thinking process, or do you have other ways of doing that?
I mean, I did try giving them sort of designs and design thinking, but to us, I think rather than me going away was to try and do it in sort of what we call in IT as RAD, so rapid application development. So I would sit with them and try to understand their thinking compared to my objective, and we'd sort of collaborate and we'd get the design built on paper with prototypes. I mean, Excel's a great prototyping tool, and almost just get them involved in the discussion to make sure that I don't just talk to them once, I talk to them as regularly as possible.
So right. Sorry, I was just going to add to rapid application development is traditionally used in the engineering principles. A methodology well reversed. I think some of the manufacturing processes that maybe the arts discipline have also been involved in may have come across RAD, but it's very much an iterative model where you're involving lots of feedback processes.
Thanks for that. Another question that's come just come through. I think it's from Jan at STEAMhouse Phase 2. She has picked up on the point around innovation, and businesses that don't innovate won't buy innovation. So they might be doing it in their everyday work to survive, and innovation occurs every day when solving problems in business. So how do you tap into that?
Interesting question. So I think more about those are the grand challenges. Those are the global economical challenges that where if you take, for example, the corporate world, where they have a sense of responsibility. So we work on, for example, in my team, we work on sustainable development goals. We will work with the corporates to identify where their priorities are, where they can make a contribution or a difference, and the research teams will align as they see fit. But if you look at SMEs prospectively, we would look at SMEs who are very agile, who are doing this day in, day out, problem solving. They don't have the extra cash to fund innovative ideation ideas or intellectual property. But there is one particular example that I'm working on with now is they're absolutely busy in their everyday manufacturing and production, where there's a passion project. I call them passion projects, where they don't have the time or the resource to apply, and we can make those, we can embed those as part of the education system. We can explore them, we can evaluate them. We have lots of postgraduate research students who would evaluate and see if that aligns in their research journey, or even less, undergraduate industry projects and master's industry projects, where we could really experiment and take these to get some documentation, to get the work started off, so that exploration can occur very early and almost sometimes with the university environment at almost no cost. So it's a huge opportunity for that for SMEs to get to engage in those kind of opportunities within BCU.
Thanks for that, Rehan. Another question that's just come in. How do you define success in terms of an intervention, and how do you encourage innovative thinking in the company in the longer term? So how do you maintain that once you've gone out of your KTP? How do you know that they're going to carry on with it?
I think so. If you look at KTP and if you look at any of the Innovate advisors, they will come back to us, and it's always about performance. So we have indicators that we work with all our projects, and we measured against those indicators whether we are making impact or not. And impact has got to be measured, one, on the business itself, and that's what we're doing it for. And then, of course, there's secondary impacts where we're making a difference to the environment or the society. But ultimately, all those get calculated as KPIs that for the project in itself. I don't know if Waldo and Nazim want to add anything to that in terms of KPIs.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, yeah, we definitely have the KPIs themselves, but and this is probably very, very hard to measure what I'm going to say, but also you can see how the companies, at least in the KTPs that I've been involved with, I can say for sure about those, and people are actually quite happy about what we are doing, and there's no way of measuring happiness, but you can tell that they are getting the results and seeing a difference. I was going back a little bit on the previous question. It's how do you embed innovation, and in a way that's a measure of success, because you can tell on another project that we're doing as well. They were hit very hard from the COVID-19 situation, and it's all about making sure how can they come back from all this. And the KTP that we were doing before, and obviously continue doing so, actually plays a huge part. We didn't know, right, that it was going to happen, but now the innovation now itself, it's all about how do we help them to survive and thrive once everything gets back to normal. So I think that's another way of measuring, and definitely all these KPIs as well. We like to work as well with quick wins as much as we can, embed quick wins and things that can show whomever is responsible of taking decision makers within the companies, that they see all the benefits and value that we can provide by just getting something quick, and it's worked so far. So yeah, Naz, sorry if there's something from the company's point of view.
Naz, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Nazim.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Okay. Just while working in the company, we've been around for 25, 30 years almost. We were a very innovative company. So, I mean, ever since working with BCU, the benefits that we're getting through this innovation, that has itself embedded innovation into the company. Just by them being able to see what they can achieve through innovation, that embeds the idea of innovation into the company and the idea to do more. So, I mean, as long as the innovation you're bringing to the company is beneficial to the company, I think even though the managing directors aren't very technical, as long as they can see improvements, as long as they can see efficiency, increase in profit, then that embeds the drive to continue to innovate as time goes by.
Thanks, Nazim. I think we've got time for maybe one more quick question, and slightly more from an artist point of view. So where you've got, you're working with artists, it's not always about the business, it's more about society and the impact on societal issues, or adding to culture in some innovative way. So do you consider this over the concept of business, and how would you consider that within your kind of STEAM innovation approach?
So, I mean, artists play a huge role in inspiration for any company, for that matter, and we can see that from today's digital world in terms of marketing. So there's, let's face it, I think some of the creativity and some of the mind opening that happens with a free-spirited approach, we would not have moved this far. So I think there is a role to be played. There is in the STEAM innovation piece where we do include that. And I mean, processes like design thinking, rapid application, they do involve iterative thinking. And to be honest, I always use the example of the Mona Lisa painting, where it's done in incremental against iterative. So those methods involve the creative mindset and absolutely play a huge role both in education and business.
Thanks, Rehan. I think we've got time for one final question, and I don't know which one of you wants to take this one. So if you can summarise, what would you do to inspire more regional businesses to take advantage of KTPs?
What would I do to inspire them?
Yeah.
I think probably demonstrate case studies like these more. But I think what has occurred is, I mean, let's take, for example, I look at Nazim, right? But there's lots of graduates from any university, for that matter, have gone out into employment, are in the mid-management role, and are stepping up to challenges that the companies have. So I think there's a lot we can do with our alumni networks, in engaging with them, in ensuring that that we are as a university, as a societal piece for us, as a responsibility, that we are continuing to support them. So for me, that's what I'd continue doing. I think that's been absolutely rewarding from that perspective, but also ultimately making a huge difference to our local and regional economy.